Hello, welcome to another episode of the LiveCost Construction Experience. I'm delighted this week to be joined by Robin Hayhurst, who is a construction industry coach helping companies across the UK. Robin, you're very welcome. Great to have you here.
Oh, it's nice to be here.
Robin, I always like to kick this off with getting an idea of the person behind the business or the person behind the services, I suppose, that you're offering in your case. But I suppose, what's your relationship with construction and where did all that begin?
Well, it started with a family business, in fact. So my father started a development business. He was a carpenter that went into contracting and development. And it was something that I kind of grew up in, really. So I started working on site when I was about 12. I'm sure I'm not meant to say that, really, but driving dumpers and such like. And kind of went on from there. And he was very keen. I got qualified. So I actually ended up slightly later on in life becoming a chartered builder and getting a degree in building management. So but I followed in his footsteps.
Yeah, similar enough, I suppose, to myself actually. Yeah, so I'm a carpenter by trade, and you don't get much choice, do you? You sort of get brought on that journey, and that's really it. I'm a little bit of a black sheep now at this stage because I've gone from the construction to the construction technology even. And I suppose so you kicked off sort of out in the trenches, I suppose, as you speak, and then you went out and started operating your own businesses then.
Well, I went out, I was kind of kicked out of the company when I was about 18 to go and make my own way. So I worked for some major house builders and some minor house builders. So I was doing lots of site management then. But when you say I started out in trenches, I literally did. I was, when I started out as groundworks and stuff like that, laying pipes and all that kind of thing. But it's difficult to grow up in a family company. So it wasn't until 1999 that I went back to the company.
How important do you think that is when you start to look back now, like I suppose when you work with companies, like having that experience of being in the trenches? So a lot of the time, like, business coaches, advisors, 10 a penny. Let's call it. There's a lot of people out there that will offer you advice if you pay them. But I mean, how important and how much do you get to utilize that experience of actually setting off in the trenches?
Hell of a lot. I mean, I was lucky. I came up through the company. I came up through various companies. I've experienced huge wins and failures, and that has kind of put me in a position where I'm uniquely qualified to help other companies. And I've also discovered I really love helping other people. It's a great thing to do, and to make it your living is even better. But no, the experience I have, I was lucky in my training. One of my companies took me on, and I think due to a family relationship, relationship with my father, they decided to train me in everything. So I've done architecture, I've done buying, I've done surveying, site management, setting out, engineering. Everything. So it just gives me that kind of overall view, which made me uniquely qualified to become a managing director, because I was able to understand everybody's perspective and the jobs they did.
Yeah, it's interesting because the model of we're based out in Ireland here, but the model in the UK model is very much the Irish model. UK model are very similar, and I learned that from time I spent in Australia, whereby the Aussie model is very structured, even down into the trade, where, as a carpenter, for example, the carpentry trade, we broke into first fix carpentry, second fix carpentry, roofing carpentry. We even had guys going around saying that they're skirting board carpenters. And for me, that was just absolutely foreign. Like a carpenter, a joiner, like our trade is carpentry, joinery. You cover the whole lot, and then eventually in time you might niche in, but you are absolutely capable of covering the lot. And I mean, that's interesting you speak about that. I mean, imagine the experience that brought you as you started to work with these companies. I suppose that's a question. Like, why do developers and contractors across the UK come to you for help?
It's a mixture. Some of them have got exactly that, a site background. They've never trained in or been taught how to run a company. And it's a different skill set. Easily learned. You can learn it. It's just a system, really. But they haven't got that background. They've kind of become very good at their trade and said, "Oh, okay, I'll start a company." And they haven't got a business degree and they haven't done this and they haven't. So I try and fill that gap in and get them into a system that allows them to run the company successfully, because the fail rate, mainly for that reason, I think, is really, really high for companies, particularly our industry. The other sector of people that come to me are people that's doing all right. They've done quite well. They might be a contractor. They want to go into development. Well, I've spent 20 years finding sites, developing, building out. So I can help them make that kind of leap from contractor to developer.
Interesting. Yeah, no, interesting, because I pulled up your LinkedIn here, and what strikes me here is the challenges that you've helped clients overcome include finding work and winning tenders. On that point there, I always talk about the little percentages that I think make a difference, because like most of us are skilled and we're trained well in our trades, and we can deliver a project, and that bit, it tends to be taken as a given by a client that you can deliver, but it's these little 1% that'll make the difference. On the tendering side, like what do you see there? I mean, what are the top mistakes you see companies in the UK make in the tendering process?
I think it's very, very similar nationwide, and around the world. Basically, I've kind of received a lot of tenders. I've tendered some big work, and I've received loads and loads of tenders from different contractors, and they just send a price in, a spreadsheet with a breakdown and a price. It tells me nothing about them. Doesn't tell me what they're up to, what they can do, why they're good. It's really important they send, this is a contact with your client. So it's important that you send a brochure in, that you send information about about how you're going to control the project, as much information as possible. And the take on it from some industries, I can't bother to do all that. Well, you're not kind of giving yourself a fair chance of winning the site. Be very careful about what tenders you do, but when you do them properly. And the other thing, of course, you can do is you can use things like LinkedIn and just soft touch the client. So all that is just make them aware of you. It's that little bit of bias, that kind of subconscious bias they will have, that might make the difference because they've heard of you.
Yeah, absolutely makes a difference. I remember one of our first companies. Our win percentage wasn't good, and we just couldn't understand, like, why is this happening? Why are we not winning? We're a good team. We know we can deliver. We do the right things. Why is it that we just can't seem to win as much work as what we think we should be winning for the effort that we're putting in, we believe we're putting into tenders? And at that time, we brought in a coach, believe it or not, and the first thing he looked at, and I remember him saying to me, "There's not many problems in business that can't be resolved by sales. Okay, so we need to look at that first. And how do you tender? What does your proposals look like?" And he pulled them apart. He absolutely pulled them apart, all wrong. And it came to a point where it was nearly a presentation. It was nearly a full deck of presentation material, pretty much standardized once we got it together. In the first instance, there was even elements of it for ones that we really want to go after, where we had a video template showing everything, where we link up the video templates showing everything. I remember the effort that we put into that and the difference it made. Like, just that little, again, talk about these little 1% that make a difference. Something that that sparks my interest there is you talk about LinkedIn for creating brand awareness and stuff like that. I mean, in terms of generating work and creating awareness, is LinkedIn one of the top channels that you would coach your clients on?
It is, if you're a B2B company. So if you're selling to another business, but then, I mean, if you're selling to a customer, everybody owns a company is a customer. So it works for both, though Facebook is probably better for B2C sales or business to customer. But it's not about being in people's faces. They really don't like that. It's really about soft touches. So you can message them, just connect, don't try and sell them anything, put some posts up, and over a period of time, they'll just become aware of you. And that's what it's about, really.
What sort of post then? I mean, I suppose this is a conversation I actually have with a lot of our clients, actually, where so how we use LinkedIn in the same sense. We use it as a place where we can create awareness. Again, we don't do any selling on LinkedIn. A place where we can create awareness, and the way we view it is we'll use it as a tool to try and create value. So, for example, some of the stuff that we were talking about here today, that'll go on LinkedIn because there'll be absolutely snippets in there that will be valuable to other companies. So we post that up. But some of the kickback I've got from companies is, well, that's easy for you. You're talking about really, sort of business stuff and it's interesting stuff. What am I going to talk about? Wall plates, bricks, and I've
Well,
challenged them. I mean, what's your take on that? What can contractors, developers be posting on LinkedIn?
it's really simple. And I can tell you a really good example. There's a roofing company locally to me. Never heard of them, but they're on LinkedIn, and I think once or twice a week they'll show a picture of a bit of work they finished. Nice bit of lead work, nice roof. Maybe they'll hang around and wait for the sun to set behind it or the sun to rise behind it, or and they'll just say, really proud of this bit. The lads have done a really good job. That's it. But that little touch makes me think they're really proud of what they do. They're a quality company. So already, never met them, have never tendered any of my work in the past, never worked with them. I hold them in high esteem because they seem to be very proud of what they do. And it's that simple. But the thing about LinkedIn and being successful on LinkedIn is just consistency. If you try it for 2 weeks and you get nothing, well, that's going to happen. You're not going to get anything. Talking about keeping it up for 6 months, a year, and then it will have an impact.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're describing there to me is it's telling stories, documenting rather than creating content on a day-to-day basis, which a lot of companies just think, I don't have the resources to put someone in a place where we have to create social media content. But I mean, if you just documented what you do along the journey, so this is a new job, we're starting here today, this is what it looks like today. Do you remember this new job we posted 2 weeks ago? Well, look, there you go, we got the floor slabs in. Look at this, now we're up to roof level, and people will start to follow that story. And my take on that is, you've got the best content ever. You're just working it so much that you're so embedded in it that you actually can't remove yourself from it to see the stories that you're creating. And then, that golden shot at the end of a project where you're handing keys over to clients, everyone's going to love that. I mean, so I mean, I would agree with you on LinkedIn. I think it's a powerful tool to get in front of people that you're interested in doing business with. In terms of the other level up from to LinkedIn, there's the Sales Navigator product. Do you have much experience with that? Is it something that you recommend to your clients?
A little bit. It's very good if you're using an automated tool for sending messaging, which is kind of a bit frowned upon because it's overused, and people tend to kind of say, do you want to connect? Hi, everything. And then 10 seconds later, when they connect, real salesy message comes in. I do so and so. Do you want to buy?
Yeah.
And people hate it. But as a tool, Sales Navigator allows you to really hone in, and I think it's one of the very few things you can use to hone in on your clients. So if you want to find clients that are in your area, certain geographical region, or doing certain jobs or doing certain work, or certain people within those clients, you can find them quite accurately with LinkedIn. And with Sales Navigator, just allows you to hone in that much more on it. So you could do a search and find 2,000 potential clients. Well, that's a big pool to play around with.
And once you sort of, let's say you hone in on these, because I think what I'm hearing from you here is, with B2B business, for example, I generate most of my revenue and most of my projects through architects. Therefore, I should probably spend a lot more time on LinkedIn. If I'm a B2C facing model, like I do jobs for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, well, then maybe Facebook is probably a good route. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing, right?
Basically, yeah. I mean, they both do both, but one's better. Each is better at individual stuff. So business to business is LinkedIn, but any person can be a customer.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Business to customers is Facebook, but anyone who's a customer might own a business. So it's always worth being on both platforms, but obviously you concentrate on the one that's better suited to your clientele.
I'm looking at the second part of your statement there. You have on your own LinkedIn profile, which is, helping clients build quality systems and processes so they can gain control of their business while freeing up time to spend with their families. talk to me about that. I mean, how often are companies coming to you with a problem of simply, I just don't have enough time to see my family?
Most of my clients have that as a problem, and there's a few things they're getting wrong. Firstly, when I ask them what they want out of life, they tell me that they want their company to do this or their company to do that. Actually, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what they want out of life, because the company is there to support what they want out of life. So there's no point having the stress of running a £10 million turnover company if you only want to earn, £70,000 a year, and that's what you need. Because you can have that kind of income for much smaller, easier to handle companies. So it's all about what we call the why. But yeah, most people are overwhelmed. They're trying to solve their problems just through hard work, and that's brilliant. But actually, you've got to work smart, and you've got to put systems in place and things that are going to assist you and stop this overwhelm. And there's simple things you can do in the first step just to give you time to actually work on the company rather than in the company. People with smaller companies, for instance, might not have considered employing a virtual assistant. Now, virtual assistants work by the hour. You don't have to employ them. They can come in and take over certain roles. You can delegate to them. There's a big difference between delegating and abdicating. But yeah, you can bring someone in, and within 2 weeks, you can actually find that you're kind of starting to have time. And there's putting systems in place, and there's also making sure that your team, whether that be a professional team around you or the team you employ, that they're functional and not dysfunctional. They're working together, they're not creating new hassle. And there's a very easy steps of how to make sure that your team aren't causing you work. They're not putting all their problems onto you. They're going away and solving them themselves. And there's simple methods to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, again, just going back to our company, like when we started to bring in some help and started to understand why things weren't moving as well for us, that exact statement that you just said there was, you're not spending enough time on the business, you're spending too much time in the business. So that's not something that's going to happen overnight. You're not just going to, let's just say, we make a decision today that tomorrow now I'm going to work on the business because my role is so critical to the business that's never going to happen. So how do we slowly pull away the key guys? Someone has to have the helicopter view of the business. And I think, that statement of we need to spend some time. For me, it used to be just removing myself 1 day a week. And that was how do we remove myself 1 day a week from this company, which is a huge struggle, a huge real struggle. And then you suddenly do it. And you do it by exactly what you're saying. What are the low level tasks that I'm doing here that someone else could essentially do for me? Simple stuff that we could hand out to VA. That's a great idea. So 20% of my time essentially is now working on the business. In terms then of the understanding of these systems and process that you would put in place, are you setting up like KPIs? Are you looking at structures where they can see how they know that the company is performing well versus how they know company isn't performing so well?
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, it's surprising how many other coaches tell me, don't give away secrets. Don't say how you do it. Listen, it's taken me 30 or 40 years to learn what I'm doing. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. So you can't give away the secrets. So it's very simple. You put in place a really good cash flow forecast. People tend to not put a cash flow forecast in place because they say, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm guessing. Well, that's the whole point. Think about it as a construction program. I haven't yet seen a perfect construction program. People guess. And that's really the same thing with cash flow forecast. You've got to just realize that you are guessing, but a guess is better than nothing. And the other thing to do is to put into place a 90-day plan so that you're forever improving your business and aiming for things in the short term. And that, along with a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan, which is much kind of more likely to change, really give you a good direction and a route map, which is coined phrase at the moment. So that kind of really helps. And then you put systems in place around those. So you have KPIs, you're controlling your financials, and everything's got a system from the start to the end.
Is that something I should go and seek help for? Is a lot of the time our our accountants essentially become bookkeepers that look after some compliance stuff for us. And generally, a lot of the time, they don't. Like, so companies think their accountants are going to be there to advise them along the way, and the reality is it just doesn't happen. So is that such a critical part of my business to have this cash flow forecast? I'm a carpenter. Now I'm in this development business. I don't know enough about numbers to go and run this. But is it that important that I should actually have someone at a part-time basis helping me with the financials?
It's really, really important that you get the financials done. Listen, I'll be honest, you can do it yourself, but it'll be a slow process and you'll have to learn by making mistakes. There are books out there that'll help you. I mean, one I could recommend is Profit First for Contractors. It's a really good book. It's American, but it's easy to kind of translate. But it's not the quickest route, and you're not going to get the kind of full impact of working with someone like myself.
Yeah, okay. Let me put this one to you. So I'm a time poor developer, I'm a contractor, I'm working in the UK, I've got tight margins. I want more time to increase margins, so I can have less stress. What are the three key areas, if you were to summarize these three key areas that I should focus on to make that transition from, say, organized chaos to enjoyable, sustainable, happy business owner?
Well, financial control is one of the main ones. And that's a really important part of it. You've got to get control of your finances. Some people are almost scared to do that. It's like grasping the nettle. But honestly, even if things are bad, they're not normally as bad as you think they are. So that's a really important part of it, is to grabbing that. The other thing is to put systems in place. So simple systems. We're not trying to encourage people to do mountains of paperwork. It's not in anyone's interest. But systems can also be automation. So computer software, as you're aware, can help greatly. And if you can cut out a paperwork system by automating it, you're saving so much time, and you're normally being more accurate because there's less chance of things being inputted incorrectly. So I mean, that's really important side of it. And then team, it's making sure your team work properly and that they trust each other. And that's not something that just happens. You've got to work at it, and you've got to have a system to kind of move them through so they can be honest with each other. Brutal honesty is actually really important, and brutal honesty isn't about being really nasty to each other. It's just saying, that's gone wrong. Why has it gone wrong? Oh, it's your fault. Well, what can we do to improve that? So it's not the kind of end thing, isn't to blame someone. It's to find a way of improving what you're doing. And once the team understand that, that works really, really well. But the whole team has to trust each other, because otherwise they end up having this kind of blame-orientated culture, which is so normal in the construction industry, and they become dysfunctional.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. So I mean, I'm interested that your number one was financial control, because, so just to give you a bit of backstory, I mean, how LiveCost was actually created was essentially, we built a system that worked really, really well for our business, and then we decided, is this a big enough problem for other companies? And we decided to go into something that we'd never done before, which is a R&D body of research on a lot of companies across UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, US. And what we found was the biggest problem, and we had to refine this question many, many times, but essentially what we got back to was we used to have a series of questions, survey companies, but really what we were able to summarize this down to one question by the time we actually got into it a bit. And it was, what was the one problem that keeps you awake at night time? We asked hundreds of business owners, what was the one problem that keeps you awake at night time? And that was it: finances. Yeah. So when we decided that, a lot of the companies were saying, I just don't know whether this project's making money or not. And that's what keeps me awake, is I'm worried about, what's the knock-on effect of this project onto the next project, whatever it might be. So that's absolutely where LiveCost was born. We said, okay, really what people want is they want live financial data. So I'm very interested that, your top key area that you would look at for us will be in the finances. Systems, just actually throw it in there as well, a little tip for people that are listening there. What we've developed out that's worked quite well is, if the team starts to grow and the company starts to grow, and you have different people in different areas very skilled at what they do, and you can have that fear that, well, if John or Sarah ever leave us, do we understand fully what they do? And it's just a simple tip there. We created a Google Drive folder where we got people to document what they do through video. So literally sharing screens and saying, this is how I process an invoice. This is how I onboard a new employee. This is how I do. And it's filed and it's a system. It's essentially a system. So, I mean, that allows companies to scale. So now when new employees come in, they're following a video piece of content. Plus, if Sarah or John decide to leave, it doesn't leave the company with a gaping hole. And then your third one was team. So trust. I mean, is that something that we just got to build over time? Can we? I mean, you touched on the States there, the US. The US are so big on culture, and culture is not something that's talked about in construction much on our side of the water. Like, how important is that? I mean, how important is it to have a team and a culture of people that sort of all together? And how do you put one together?
Right. Yeah. It's fundamental. I've been on sites where it's just wrong. The culture is wrong. You just know it is, and it's really difficult to pull it back. And then you go to other sites where everyone's helpful. Everyone's trying to help each other. It's all right. Everything works right. You feel right about it. The site goes really well. That culture, construction is so adversarial, and I think it's just wrong. And we're starting to wake up to it. But within your own team, you've got to trust each other, and it's not something that just happens over time. You've got to train it. So you've got to actually have meetings to discuss the team, how you work. You can bring people in to help with that, team building exercises and other things, so that people start to see other people as people, see that they have got flaws, but they have their positives, and they can trust them. Sometimes I can compare it to maybe an SAS group. If your bloke on your right isn't looking after the right, and you're trying to look after his right and look after what you've got to look after, someone's going to get it, basically. So you've got to trust other people in your team to do their job properly. But the kind of big difference in a functional and dysfunctional team is if they don't do their job properly, you need to help them to do their job properly. You've got to help them to improve. And that's the difference, rather than just going, it's your fault. It's all your fault. You're the problem. Yes, you've got to identify who's at fault or who could improve, but then you've got to see what you can say and do to help them improve.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I mean, there's a misconception that culture means beanbags and slides and bloody ping pong tables, and that you put a couple of them in the office and suddenly you have culture, and it just ain't that, is it? It's these are people that I work with, these are people I trust, these are people that if shit hits the fan, I've got people behind me that'll help me. A difficult thing to put into a company, especially when you've got so much other stuff going on. But God, when you get it right, you get it right. Again, just like go back to the time in Australia. The Aussies had this. They had this not at a company level, at a project level. So the Aussies used to do their toolbox talk generally Friday morning. But when I was there, we started to see a lot of them push out the Friday afternoon and invite beers onto the site. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has to have a beer, but a lot of people would. It's Friday afternoon, it's 3:00, the sun is shining. But what it done was it created this unbelievable project culture between all the subcontractors and all the main contractors and anyone that was on that site. And then suddenly when you arrive back in on Monday, there's no arguments over sockets and use of scaffolding and ladders, and they just went away because you've had a beer with these guys. And I just thought, what a smart way to get people together. What a smart way, something so simple. Doesn't have to be always involved around beer, but it worked. It really worked well.
It does work well if you can get the culture right. And you imagine if you're thinking, well, actually, I'll have a good tidy up in here because I know this trade's going to come behind me, but I want to make it as easy for them because someone did that for me. So the person I've come into this unit has made sure everything's finished so I can get on. So by thinking about the other trades will think about you. And it's the same with the team. It's trying to help each other. And, we know what building sites are like. We know when the brickies turn up, it goes to pot, the carpenters don't like the bricklayers, etc. I mean, it's all that kind of, but it's not like that all the time. And there are some really good trades out there, and lots of really good trades and really good contractors. And it's getting this culture right, where people want to do well and they want to do their best, and they're proud of what they do. It's not just about I want to make my 200 quid a day and bugger off and sort everyone else. And by helping each other, everyone makes more money anyway. There's less problems.
Yeah. The quicker we get out of here, the more money we make was one I heard very early in my career. I mean, what's your take on the model then between, just something that's coming to my head as we're talking here? What's your take on the model between company, developer, sets up small development company, couple of guys in the office, subcontract everything out, which then removes that sort of culture, because you're dealing with different subcontractors each time, versus no, we're going to employ everything in-house, so we have that, as you say, that culture. We can get in and deliver these projects. We all trust each other. We know what we're doing. What's your take on the different models?
Well, it's a rarity to employ everyone in-house now. It's just a rare thing. But you choose your subcontractors, and if you think about it, going back to tenders, you're going to choose subcontractors that sell themselves as being good team players, and that's what you should be looking at. You should be looking beyond the price. If you're just price orientated and that's all that matters, then you're going to end up in trouble at some stage. It's just not going to go right for you. You've got to look at a more all-rounded thing. And I've heard so many times people say, well, there's 10 grand difference in price. They've got to cock up a lot for 10 grand. Well, it still happens, and actually it's your management and your time and, how it disrupts everyone else on the site, because you've got one contractor that has, undercut everyone and come in and not done a good job. So I think you can create a team, whether they're working directly for you or not. And a good subcontractor who works with you properly, and you treat them as a kind of internal, as someone who works for you directly. Yeah. So you look after them. We used to have a Christmas lunch for subcontractors. We used to certain anniversaries, we used to take them all out and things like that. And we had subcontractors working for us for 20, 30 years, but always in competition with others as well. So they didn't get every job. And it can work if you're just upfront and honest about it, and you have this kind of fair and honest approach. I think it works really well.
Yeah, that's an important point. Is you can create a very, very, very good relationship with a subcontractor and still not give them every project. Similar to our suppliers, we're never going to just go and have one supplier and that's it, because that doesn't make business sense. We should have 3 suppliers, or 5 suppliers, whatever it might be. What's the plan for the business then? Obviously, you've got yourself. Can you explain a little bit about what sort of services and what sort of stuff goes on within the business now?
Well, at the moment, I'm offering one-to-one coaching. So I'm building up. I'm only going to take a limited number of clients. So I've got a few more spaces available at the moment. As of the end of the summer, I'm going to be starting a course specifically aimed at people that have started a subcontract business, and it's going to be named From Building Site to Business Owner, which I thought was apt, really. And it's really the course is taught by myself and others. It will be online, but it'll be face-to-face online, and it's really to give people the skills they need to run a business that they haven't gained from working on site. So we would hope they know the trades bit. But then it's the business skills that we're giving someone. So it'll be a 6-month course. And then next year, that will then move into continual support for people by the use of what's called a peer-to-peer group. So it's a bit like your own board of directors made up of other subcontractors. And they can really support you and help you with problems. And one of the things about that is if you've got a specific problem and there's 8 of you around the table, a virtual table, obviously, you'll be surprised who's gone through that problem has already got a solution. And the time it can save you is unbelievable. And that support that you feel, because you can just say, I'm really having a shit time, this has happened, and people can tell you how to move forward from it. So that's an important thing. That'll start to, the idea is people coming off the course will have the option to go onto the peer-to-peer group.
Yeah, that one makes a lot of sense. I mean, even for me going from construction into technology, obviously I had a bit of a fear and saying, geez, I don't know anything about technology, but suddenly I'm jumping into this technology side of construction, and I know a bit about construction, all right, but not about technology. So interesting enough, I surrounded myself with other technology company owners, and we have a group where I come to the table mainly with problems. And I agree with you. You know, having other people that have lived and breathed that particular problem is just great to have. Where can people find out more about that?
Right. Well, the new website is being launched next week, and that's robinhayhurst.com. And that'll just be really advertising the first point, kind of one-to-one coaching. And then the other products will be added to it as they become available, really. Or just contact me. My email address is robin@robinhayhurst.com. So quite simple. And if you want to contact me, then I'll obviously come back to you.
Brilliant. Robin, you've been really kind with your time. Yeah, and we appreciate you coming on. I wish you all the best with the new coaching and the new courses as they come out. We certainly keep keeping an eye on it, and we'll do what we can to give it a push as well.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And thanks for your time as well.